Good morning, everyone. It's our privilege to present our project, Enhancing the Cultural Intelligence of County Personnel. We have a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to go through some information pretty quickly. Here's a really brief outline. We're going to delve into some background information and snapshots of data. We're going to talk about the cultural intelligence model, implementation recommendations, and we're going to look at the nexus between cultural intelligence and psychological safety in healthcare. So to start things off, we ask the question, what is culture? Cambridge Dictionary defines culture as the attitudes, behavior, opinions, etc., of a particular group of people within society. And this word cloud on the left helps to paint a bigger picture, a broader picture of all the different things that make up culture. Taking this a step further, how do we view cultural diversity? What assumptions and what biases do we hold, and what do we think based on how people look, how they behave? Please take a moment to self-reflect on this question. Now let's take a look at some data. The 2000 census is depicted here as a map of Los Angeles County with dots. Each dot represents 25 persons. And those colors are coordinated to different racial self-identification in the census. So to look in a particular subset of this, we've got a lot of Latino Americans represented in orange. Now, let's ask the question, what does that Latino American label tell us about culture? How many cultures are represented by that label? Looking at a different perspective, here's a graph that looks at age breakdown between 2020 and 2010 in Los Angeles. What kind of things do we make assumptions about when we think about different age groups? Frank is now going to tell us how the cultural intelligence model helps us better understand ourselves and each other.
Thanks, Warren. So I wanted to start off of actually describing what is cultural intelligence. And the definition of cultural intelligence is an individual's capability to function and manage effectively in culturally diverse settings. So research suggests that cultural intelligence is actually a fifth type of intelligence that overlaps and complements with personal, emotional, social, cognitive, and practical intelligences. And as such, an individual's cultural intelligence works synergistically with the factors such as cognitive ability and personality. So to try to make that a little simpler, cultural intelligence is really the ability to recognize and adapt to cultural differences. It helps and provides confidence to operate under successfully in a wide range of settings, and helps develop an in-depth understanding of working styles within other cultures. So the next area really what we want to touch upon is the four areas within cultural intelligence and what makes it up. And we're looking at drive, knowledge, action, and strategy. And the drive is really a metacognitive or awareness of other cultural norms and adjustments that are made to adapt to a given environment. The knowledge area or cognitive component is the understanding of differing cultural values, arts, laws, and other items that may demonstrate differing values and ways of living. Within the strategy aspect or component is really behavioral, or making changes, making decisions to change or adjust your speech patterns and nonverbal or facial expressions. And the fourth and final component would be your action or motivational component. And this is when one thrives really to seek out different cultures or to take in and operate in the different reality. The next slide addresses really what is there a need within the county for this? And we noticed and just completed multiple trainings, whether it's county policy of equity, violence in the workplace, sexual harassment and discrimination prevention, the different courses that we are required to take. This will actually bolster and fill a gap that's actually missing. And that is where you're taking the differences between nationality, ethnicity, and religion, and implementing that into what we normally just see as a racial division. The cultural intelligence really develops an individual inwardly, and as opposed to a lot of these other programs are looking outward and what other people may be doing or the way you may interact with another individual. So working in a culturally diverse environment does make it easier to forget that the people you're dealing with have different perceptions or perspectives from yours, And with cultural intelligence development, you're more aware of the differences that you're actually encountering every day. Employees who do possess a high level of cultural intelligence play an important role in bridging divides and knowledge gaps in an organization, educating their peers about different cultures, the transfer of knowledge between otherwise disparate groups, helping to build interpersonal connections and smooth the interpersonal processes in a multicultural workforce. And this really plays a huge role in determining cooperation amongst people from various, whether we're dealing with our communities, inter or intra-departmental relationships, and it traverses the various cultures, traditions, nationalities, disciplines, and functions that we experience with the various cultures and subcultures. I'll transfer this part over to Warren again.
Thank you, Frank. So now let's take another look at data, specifically regarding languages. You can see on this graph of 2010 census data, Los Angeles and New York are on the left, as both areas are very large in population and very diverse in language. Now, looking back at the racial diversity data, we have nearly 200 languages spoken in Los Angeles, but what does this racial data really tell us about language? And what other assumptions do we make about language when we look at a person? So here on the left, we have Frida Kahlo, a famous 20th century Mexican artist. What do you think her languages were? In the middle, we have Anthony Quinn, famous Hollywood actor, also from the 20th century. He did most of his acting in Hollywood movies in English. However, he was born in Mexico and spent his formative years there. And on the right, we have Odilia Romero, who's a local Los Angeles community organizer and nonprofit leader. What do you think her languages are based on the way she looks? So Odilia's organization, Cielo, they have an undocumented indigenous fund that's been helping folks during the pandemic, and they surveyed over 11,000 recipients from their program and asked them, what languages, if any, other than English and Spanish, do you prefer at home? So this is a graph showing that there were over 17 different indigenous languages represented among this 11,000 people. So next, we're going to cover how cultural intelligence training can help us better understand these matters.
Right, and thanks, Warren. So as Warren mentioned right now, if you're just going off of a racial breakdown, you miss the nuances of the various cultures and subcultures that compose the racial differences. And so what cultural intelligence does is it provides a level of training that is really inward facing. So you're much more readily able to work with different cultures. So what does that training actually look like? So we've worked with the Cultural Intelligence Center, which is an international business communities group that did research and development of curricula for cultural intelligence. And the center is nationally recognized, and its research-based training supports organizations not just beyond the international business community, but they've been able to integrate effectively into the government structure as well. At the Cultural Intelligence Center, they have an instructional framework that utilizes pre and post assessments, which is designed to measure an individual's cultural intelligence. We did include in our presentation the assessment that I had taken for it, so we can see a real-time analysis of what that looks like. And then it uses this information to develop personalized action plans for an individual or a group. The training curriculum really is composed of three main components. One is cultural intelligence development, the cultural value profile, and then the recognition and management of implicit or unconscious biases. Our group does recommend that we start with a small subset, which we're going to discuss a bit later, and for implementation, and then eventually expand to a greater workforce, which again, Pattie will discuss towards the end. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to Stephen.
Thanks, Frank. So now we'll present an overview of our recommended implementation plan. Now, we've learned throughout this ELDP course that the identification and buy-in of stakeholders is essential to the success of a project. So we've identified 6 stakeholder groups whose buy-in is critical for the implementation of our CQ training and the establishment of the Cultural Intelligence Office. The Board of Supervisors, it has the ultimate power to authorize the implementation of this plan, but luckily we already have some buy-in there because the task for our working group was to develop a plan to enhance CQ cultural intelligence in county personnel. CEO's got to score and budget our plan for funding, and we have made provisions in this plan to minimize the initial financial and staffing requirements of implementation by leveraging the Department of Human Resources' existing training infrastructure. DHR, right? DHR already has a robust and effective training infrastructure, and we recommend using that infrastructure to deliver this CQ training. In addition, by working closely with DHR, we ensure that our curriculum is consistent with county rules and policies. CEOP. The County Equity Oversight Panel already offers an online implicit bias and cultural competency training. This CQ curriculum can then be integrated into that existing training program. Furthermore, by working with CEOP, we can be sure to identify any potential CPOE related issues when dealing with subject matter dealing with race, culture, ethnicity, gender. The departments, we recommend meeting with the executive staff of the departments to illustrate how CQ principles can reduce employee friction, enhance communication, increase psychological safety, and ultimately lead to better work outcomes. And lastly, the public. We cannot forget that as county employees, we work in service of the public. So we recommend creating a cultural intelligence training module that is available to the public in an effort to share CQ concepts with our constituent communities. Next slide, please. As far as our implementation plan, as Frank mentioned, we recommend a graduated implementation process. First, leveraging the county's training infrastructure by augmenting existing diversity and cultural competency curricula with CQ materials, and then tailoring that curricula to meet the specific needs of the individual departments. This will minimize startup costs and personnel requirements. We recommend using existing training staff, utilizing kind of a train the trainer approach. We think this will lessen the fiscal impact of initial implementation and bolster overall sustainability. Once the training cadre has been brought up to speed, we recommend that CQ curriculum be initially rolled out on a test basis in the Department of Health Services. Now, DHS employs a very diverse workforce and provides services to a multicultural client base in what has lately been a highly pressurized environment, and always is a highly pressurized environment. So it's an ideal place to pressure test and monitor the effectiveness of CQ training, basically assessing proof of concept. During the test rollout, we'll track outcomes, performance metrics to monitor the effectiveness of our implementation plan. And with lessons learned from this process, the county can, if it so wishes at that time, to push out CQ training to additional departments. As more departments come online, we recommend the creation of a centralized data tracking locus to track countywide performance metrics and to monitor the overall effectiveness of CQ implementation. We recommend that an Office of Cultural Intelligence be created to provide this centralized locus. The Department of Human Resources is already the primary coordinator of workplace training throughout the county, and we recommend that the OCQ be established within DHR. Now, while there's other county entities focused on diversity, we think that DHR is best suited to deal with issues of curriculum, training, and workplace law that will necessarily arise during this implementation. The OCQ will develop and maintain a website to archive training and reference materials, statistics, and links to other resources on CQ and diversity education. And lastly, again, we recommend that this website offer free CQ training modules to the public in an effort to share CQ concepts within our community. Next, you will now hear how CQ has already been successfully implemented in other healthcare settings.
Thanks, Steve. So we know that psychological safety increases when CQ is learned, incorporated, and demonstrated by organizational leadership. Psychologically safe work environments, positively impact the workplace and our employees. And this can be realized by supporting in the sharing of individual ideas, creating an environment of honesty, non-blaming, non-judgmental lessons learned from mistakes related to human factors. Moreover, these environments foster an increased level of leadership, trust, and respect. Supervisors with lower CQ levels are less effective, efficient, and collaborative. Because there is less staff engagement in these workplaces, the employees tend to feel undervalued, unappreciated, not understood, or not included. A work climate that can be created by a leader to be safe, healthy, and culturally competent can create happiness, joy, and positively impact employee satisfaction, engagement, and retention. Leaders proficient in CQ have the demonstrated abilities to communicate more effectively and efficiently and can successfully manage conflict better. Leaders with high CQ can confidently impact shared governance or a participatory decision-making model into their organization. Leaders in the field of healthcare have already integrated CQ concepts to successfully build work environments that address employee well-being by providing environments of psychological safety and increased work satisfaction. In 2007, the Institute of Healthcare Improvement developed a concept, then named the Triple Aim, that provided an initial pathway for healthcare institutions to improve patient outcomes, increase the number of positive outcomes, and contain costs. By 2021, this concept expanded to become the Quintuple Aim. The Quintuple Aim concept incorporates CQ, psychological safety, and health equity concepts, which create better health outcomes, improved economic growth, and build a better work environment. Incorporating CQ and psychological safety into the Quintuple Aim builds relationships amongst colleagues and amongst clinicians and the population served in order to achieve the stated goals. The Quintuple Aim proves that healthcare is a relationship between those who provide care and those who seek care, a relationship that can only thrive if it is symbiotic, benefiting both parties. And with that, I will pass it over to Warren.
Thank you, Pattie. Now, speaking of leaders who have high proficiency in cultural intelligence, let's take a look at a clip from public television.
There are many ways to say I love you. There are many ways to say I care about you. Many ways, many ways, many ways to say I love you.
I'm so proud of you, Francois.
Oh, thank you, Fred.
So just to wrap this up, for anyone who this clip is new to, Francois Clemens was cast by Fred Rogers to be Officer Clemens on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood in the midst of civil rights issues in the United States. And Fred exhibited a high level of cultural intelligence, understood Francois's his hesitancy, his own relationship and understanding of law enforcement, and was able to help Francois overcome his misgivings with becoming a police officer on TV. And as a result, not only did Fred also dig deeper with Francois and bring out different parts of himself, as shown by the video of him singing, which he's a classically trained singer. This has a ripple effect in society. Having Francois be the police officer also inspired others who are watching the show to become police officers themselves. So with that concludes our presentation, and now we're available for questions. Thank you.